Hallo. Na bitte, jetzt treffen wir alle ein. Wunderbar. Ja, warten wir mal wieder 5 Minuten, bis alle Leute da sind. Herzlich willkommen. Ich freue mich auf interessante, unterhaltsame circa 1,5 Stunden oder 1 Stunde. Schauen wir mal, wie lange es wirklich dauert. Je nachdem, ob ihr tolle Fragen habt oder nicht. Vielleicht gibt es vorab schon ein paar Fragen, die euch brennend interessieren. Dann kann ich die gleich in meinen Talk einbauen. Hallo Carmen. Wo hast du dich wieder ausgekotzt, Clemens? Auf Facebook?
Vor 3 Tagen schon.
Also vor 3 Tagen war das. Wer ist Joe?
Hm?
Ich frage mich, wer das ist. Joe.
Wer ist das?
Hallo Julia.
Das war richtig geil, tut mir sehr.
Bitte.
Grüß Gott.
Joe, dann ist alles okay mit ihm, auch wenn er sich vor 3 Tagen auf Facebook aufregt. Er lebt noch.
Ich lebe.
Jeden Tag ein Otterkringer.
Größer.
Ein Gösser, Entschuldigung, jeden Tag ein Gösser.
Mein Leben, viel Spaß. Ich habe heute schon brav trainiert. Ich hoffe, ihr auch. Bleibt fit und bleibt vor allem zu Hause.
Der war ziemlich gut, Clemens, ja. Ziemlich guter Witz.
Was, dass ich trainiert habe oder dass ich zu Hause bleiben soll?
Hallo Chrissy, hallo Albi,
Bussi.
hallo Pat, hallo Judith. Wie geht es den meisten von euch mit Covid-19? Hat irgendjemand schon im Bekanntenkreis Fälle? Hallo Taiko, deren Verläufe eher schlecht waren? Das ist ein sehr spannendes Thema, über das ich, wenn dann wirklich alle da sind, auch noch ein bisschen quatschen möchte. Ist generell über Covid-19 im Allgemeinen und dann halt viel spezifisch oder viel spezifisch und dann viel allgemein auch noch. Es ist nett, dass mal alle Hallo sagen, wenn sie kommen. Also ich habe das vorher schon gesagt, gibt es vorab schon Fragen oder Dinge, die euch interessieren? Ich habe damals in meinem Studium recht viel mathematische Epidemiologie betrieben. Also ich kenne mich ein bisschen aus, was, ähm, was die Modellierung und auch die Ausbreitung von Viren in Populationen betrifft. Jetzt nicht wahnsinnig gut, aber ich verstehe zumindest, wie mathematische Modelle funktionieren, die diese gut beschreiben. Also, falls jemand dahingehend auch noch Fragen hat, ich bin jetzt kein Experte, was den Virus selber betrifft, also weit davon entfernt, aber ich kenne mich halbwegs damit aus, wie sich solche Dinge fortpflanzen, entwickeln und mit der Dynamik. Also ich habe mich selber viel mit dynamischer Modellierung beschäftigt. Hallo Michi. Gut, ich würde sagen, wir warten noch 30 Sekunden und dann legen wir los. Und bitte, wenn irgendwer Fragen hat, einfach direkt reinschreiben, nicht warten und ich versuche alles so gut wie möglich zu beantworten. Hallo Thomas, servus. Nur, dass ich YouTube-Chat verstehe. So that I understand YouTube properly. Hey, that is actually a question. Do you want me to talk in English or would most of you prefer to have it done in German? I think that's actually a very reasonable question for most of you. I think I can do both pretty well. I might get confused in the terminology once in a while, but I think I'm actually pretty good at most of the stuff. Please give me a quick feedback, everybody, to see whether you're happy with English or ob ihr lieber Deutsch hättet. Wurscht, beides fein, großartig. Solange niemand Nein schreibt, ist alles gut. Alles gut, ja. Anna, ist Englisch generell okay oder ist es eher blöd, wenn ich Englisch spreche? Also nachdem die meisten Deutsch sprechen, falls wirklich jemand kein Englisch spricht, würde ich das Ganze auf Deutsch machen und dann, as most of you guys are originally German speakers, I could do this in, okay. I will probably do this in English again and stick to German now and maybe translate some of the main terms and main concepts. Okay, I think I think this is the actually better solution. I will talk in English and I will translate, and you guys can interrupt me and say, "Hey, please explain in German as well." So I'll talk English, and I'll explain the main concepts in German as well. Okay. So first of all, hi to everybody. I'm looking forward to have a really nice webinar. Discussion based would be great. So as I said before, if you have any questions, please let me know. I think the more this is interactive, the more I can probably specifically answer your requests. But I have kind of like a rough guideline of where this should go and what I want to say. But before I start all this, as I highlighted today in my newsletter, in the email in regards to lending equipment, there is, I think, in regards to how COVID-19 spreads and which kind of population mainly affects, there's a lot of weird signs in the data so far. So when we're looking at the data in China, it really actually, I would say, if I'm like 20 to 40 years old, or maybe even 50, and I'm fairly healthy, I have no like heart disease or no lung disease or no metabolic disease, I think it's mainly metabolic disease, I would say your chance of dying at COVID-19 was like absolutely diminishing low. What has been kind of interesting to see here in especially Italy, in Austria, and I also heard some recent stats of like the average ages or the ages of people in the States getting hospitalized and what's the English word for intubated? Intubated. I don't know if this is the English word, but it sounds cool. Like a lot more young people seem to have severe reactions to the virus. And this is kind of weird because the data in China actually said something completely different. But I think it's something that we especially need to be careful with, and that we really should also think about, even if we are young and healthy, that it's probably becoming not so much anymore only a death threat to the old people, but also more and more young people. Just to warn you guys, if you don't follow it really closely, if you have no clue about exponential growth, if we're going to intubate it, yeah, that's good. If you guys don't expect it, I can tell you, like starting maybe next week to end of next week, the shit's going to hit the fan, and we're going to probably see a lot of death cases in Austria daily. We're going to probably see a lot of hospitals being overrun by people. This shouldn't be surprising if you looked everywhere else in the world, but I think there's so many people out there that really don't understand this. So as again, please take safety measurements, take distance from each other, and just take care of for yourself. So the main reason why I set up this webinar is because I think there is a couple of things that you can do to help your immune system function properly. And so through the whole webinar, everything that I'm saying is it's not medical advice. And yes, I think a lot of the stuff has fairly significant statistics or data behind it, that it actually is preventive or helpful as a cure. But please do not treat the information that I'm going to give you as hey, if I do this, I can cure myself if I have COVID-19, or I can or I won't get it. That's by far not what I'm trying to do here. Like, as I said, I think the more healthy you are, the better your immune system functions, the more safe you are. So this webinar is about immune function, and one of the key things that I want you to understand is that your nervous system and your brain basically, and your kind of magic tricks. Yeah, there is a lot of magic tricks, but sometimes the magic doesn't work. So if you're seriously sick, go find a doctor and get all the help that you need, okay? So that the nervous system is in constant interaction and constant communication with your immune system. So they both have, so they're both talking over diverse pathways and modulators. They're constantly sharing what's happening in the body and what should be happening as a response to that. And if we look at the neurology of it, there is one nerve that's strongly involved in the immunomodulation. So immunomodulation means how your immune system is either responding. Let's say it has an aggressive or like a regressive response. So sometimes it helps if you have an acute infection that you actually get a strong immune response. Sometimes, or very after the immune response occurred, it would be good if the immune system shuts down again. What we see with a lot of people that are dying from the virus is that they actually have a very, very high immune response that's getting out of control, and that this is actually the one thing that's killing them in the end. So this is kind of interesting. So if we look at the neurology behind it, there's one nerve, and it's called the vagus nerve. It's the wandering nerve. It's a nerve that's like one of your cranial nerve. It starts at your, like, just above your cervical spine. There's an area that's called the brainstem. It's an area that's basically focused on keeping all the survival mechanisms at work. So as I think I mentioned this in the last webinar, so breathing, heart rate, digestion, sleeping cycles, like they're all kind of in this region, and they're modulated in this region. So the vagus nerve is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So we have two kind of branches in the nervous system in this way. One is the sympathetic nervous system. I think a lot of you people heard about that. It's kind of like the flight or fight system. And the other one is the parasympathetic. It's the rest and digest system. So the vagus nerve is part of the rest and digest system, and it has a really strong immunomodulatory effects. I can send you guys, if you want to, two really cool papers that highlight how immunomodulation works on a brain level. So one thing that you can do to keep your nervous system healthy, your immune system healthy and well working, is targeting the vagus nerve. And I'm going to make this a little bit more drill-based initially, and then I'm going to talk to you about other important things. So this is kind of the component, hey, what can I do to help my brain modulate inflammation better, or have a better communication with my with my immune system to modulate inflammation a little bit better. And then there's a couple of other things that I want to talk to you. One is in essence, you have a lot of surface area on your body. So one is your skin. So your skin, there's a bunch of things going in and out through your skin, but in essence, the skin is a pretty solid layer that doesn't pass through too many things. Then we have other areas in our body that are in constant interaction with the outer environment. The lungs, for example. So whenever you inhale something, you're also inhaling bacteria, you're inhaling viri. So the lungs need to have kind of a cool protective mechanism. But another really, really important one for proper immune function is essentially your Magen-Darm tract, your gut, basically your gut, your intestines, and what's again the English name for Magen-Darm tract? Damn it. Oh, whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrition, and especially about like with a focus on what can you do to, or like what nutrients have antiviral components, and also components that target the viral replication, so that kind of inhibit the replication of the virus. So this is one part. Like big parts of your immune system are resting in the digestive tract, because there is so much flux, so much going in and out, or going into the body, or trying to stay out of the body. Once again, virus, bacteria, all the nutrients that you're absorbing, micronutrients and macronutrients, all this stuff needs to go somehow through our gut lining. And if there's like something called leaky gut, or if the lining is not proper, or the immune system is very weak down there, this has huge impact on overall inflammation and how your immune system works in general. So this is one thing. And then the last part, it's actually, it's very, very, very important as well. I think not only in times of coronavirus, but even more in our daily lives. I think what a lot of people have in their life is too much stress, and I'm going to talk about stress management and some simple strategies that you can use to prevent being overly stressed, or to kind of like calm down your nervous system again. And this, once again, there's some kind of overlap in here, but like the stress management parts, in the end, it also has like some very clear instructions of what I think you should be focusing on in your daily lives, probably building really good habits now that you can actually later on keep as you go back to like the daily routine in 1 or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, whatever. Gastrointestinal tract. Thanks, Albi. You guys rock. Yeah, digestive system, it's all good. I made my way through. Okay, guys. So any questions so far? So we're going to talk about the vagus nerve stimulation. We're going to talk about the gastrointestinal tract or digestive system, but I think the right word actually is the gastrointestinal tract. Then we're going to talk about like a little bit about with nutrition, about supplementation and nutrients that are important, especially with a focus on antiviral and anti-replication. Then we are going to also talk about stress management and what we can do to stay fairly relaxed. Stress is a big issue that causes not only, or easily can lead to weight gain, but also has a very, very suppressive effect on the immune system. Okay, so let's get it started. The vagus nerve, I said it before, it starts somewhere over here, and it goes down, and it kind of meanders down into all your internal organs. And the way I found out about how potent it is there is something called, I'll talk about this later, there's something called transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulation. Transcutaneous means it goes over your skin. And there's a device from Nirvana, there's a couple other devices out there that you could use. The inner ear is something that's innervated by the vagus nerve as well, or parts of the inner ear, or not, inner ear is not the right word, parts of the area innervated by the vagus nerve, the skin. And I found out about this because I read some really cool studies about asthmatics and allergic people. They oftentimes have very, very high cytokine levels in their lungs. And by having this transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulation, the immunomodulatory effect leads to a really, really stark drop in their symptoms, because the cytokines are modulated down and you have less of an immune response. So sometimes, as I told you, the immune system is overreacting. It's a cool way of like calming down the immune system if necessary, but actually balancing it out. I think that's the important thing. It's about having a proper balance between we need to have an immune response, but we need to be able to shut down the immune response as well. So what we're going to do first is stuff that's innervated by the vagus nerve. It's almost all your internal organs. So it's a little bit high, but everything like belly, chest related, all the internal organs up there, a lot of them are innervated by parts of the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve sends feedback, like sensory feedback from those organs back up to the brain. It has a lot to do with like, it's a very interoceptive feedback that we get from the vagus nerve. And like easy stuff that we can do is breathing work. So when we breathe, the diaphragm is involved. There's a lot of movement. If you're going to look at osteopathy circles, they say that your organs can move up to like 6 to 12 centimeters if you have a full deep breath in. So if you always have shallow breathing, you get less feedback from the vagus nerve, because there's less movement of your internal organs. So what we are going to do first is some breathing work. And I think I did a couple of breathing workshops already. I'm going to give you guys 2 drills that are kind of interesting in this context. One is called a diaphragm stretch. So the diaphragm stretch is our main breathing muscle. We have a couple of other inspiratory breathing muscles that help us breathe, like the chest and the muscles up here. So if you have this kind of breathing pattern, it's because these muscles help lift the chest up so that you can breathe. It's not a really healthy breathing pattern, but it actually works. But we want to focus on the diaphragm. That's kind of at the base of your rib cage, and it goes and it attaches from the lumbar up to the thoracic, so from the high lumbar into the thoracic spine. There's like the attachments, and when we use it, when we inhale, like it's kind of like dome shaped. When it contracts, it's being pulled down, and when we exhale, it's going to move up again. So the movement of the diaphragm is causing a lot of movement within the internal organs. So the diaphragm stretch. So now I'm going to move around a little bit. Don't get confused. I want you to watch this first, and then I also want you guys to do this with me. So, okay, you can watch it first, please, and then you're going to do this with me. I'm going to show you like a very light version first, and then I'm going to show you a more aggressive version. Okay, so the easy version of this is you're lying with your feet anchored, and you try to not make too much of a Hohlkreuz, so keep a fairly neutral spine. From here, we're going to do a glute bridge with a good focus on not overextending. This puts the diaphragm in a mechanically bad position, and it can't work that well. So the spine should stay neutral as we come up. So I'm just going to demo it once and then explain it. Okay, so it looks like this. I'm going to come up. Inhale. Now I'm going to exhale fully through my mouth, so it looks like this. Okay, let me repeat what I just did. So I'm going to lift my butt up. As I do this, I'm going to take a deep inhale. So really, really try to think about breathing into your belly. When you're at the top of the glute bridge with the full inhale, I want you to fully exhale. Like fully exhale. Try to get all the air out. It's easier if you open your mouth wide like this. And keep on doing this longer than you think you should do this. So even if you think you're out of air, there's like a lot of residual air volume in our lungs. You can still try to push out a little more air than you think is good. After you have like breath all the out air, I want you to lower yourself down, trying to hit the ground of the lower back first, and then the pelvis. And then I want you to relax your abs like this. If you've really exhaled, your diaphragm should move fairly way up, and you should create some kind of vacuum in your lungs that will lead to a dropping of the abdomen. So relax your abs, hold the breath for a little more, and we are going to do this like 4 times. Are you guys ready to do this together? Any questions so far? Guys, are you ready? Okay, I'm not saying but yep. Okay, so it looks like this. Very neutral position. Inhale. Exhale. You might feel it somewhere around in this area. Some people feel a slight pull on the low back or thoracic spine. Depending on where there might be some tightness, you might feel a pull from the front or a little bit more at the back side at your spinal level. It should actually feel a little bit weird from a sensation point of view, but let's just give it a try, okay? So we're going to do this, let's say 3 times, okay? 3 times together. And inhale, exhale, take a breath in between. We do it again. Inhale, exhale. And one more time. Inhale, exhale. Guys, if you already got a pretty good response from that, like you got some like pulling on the spine or something like this, you can just stick with this. I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced way of creating even more traction or more pull. And this actually fairly easy, just a variation of this is when you're coming up, I want you to keep your hands on the ground like this. Do your inhale here. Exhale. Give this one a go as well. Okay, everybody good with this? Honestly, guys, I haven't done a lot of breathing work either. Before, I think I started a couple of years ago. Breathing work, I think, is one of the coolest ways to mitigate stress and to also have a healthy functioning immune system and a healthy body. So we are breathing about like 25,000 times a day, which is quite a lot. If you have bad breathing mechanics, this can have huge impacts on posture, on health, on immune function, on digestive function. There's so many things involved in there that I think I cannot recommend highly enough to you guys to have some basic breathing practice. It turns out that a lot of Western people can't tolerate meditation. They freak out if they have to meditate. Breathing work is kind of like the same thing. You're a little bit more focused on something as you do it, but it's a great tool to have in your arsenal or toolbox that you can actually use to stay healthy. There's actually really cool studies about spinal elongation, about people with scoliosis and how proper breathing work on one side or on the affected side is actually mitigating these things as well. Okay, so this is number 1. It's a very basic drill. It's a diaphragm stretch. We want to have a lot of movement of the diaphragm. So big inhale, big exhale, and then we put it into a more like stretch position. Cool, guys? How did it feel? Beep. No feedback is good feedback. Are you guys all still trying the stretch? Do we have a good connection, guys? You guys think this is weird? Okay. You know what? I don't care so much about what you guys think now. We're going to move on. And the next thing that we do is like a breathing drill. Hey, Joe, you should feel a stretchy sensation. That you can feel this in your low back, thoracic spine, or a little bit more at the front. If you passed out, that's great. Really? But Joe, so this is what you actually should feel. Some stretchy sensation in the like inside low back to thoracic spine. Some kind of pull in the rib area. If you don't feel anything, try the version with the hands overhead. I know Ludwig is just sleeping. Okay, next one. This one is actually really cool. It's two breathing drills that I want to mention to you that are just awesome because you can build them into exercise, which I think is always a little bit funner than just lying on the ground and doing stuff. But the second breathing drill that we do is called an air hunger breathing drill. So what your body is basically responding to is it actually, the breathing response when you want to inhale, it's not measured, or what your brain is not measuring is the oxygen levels. It's actually measuring the CO2 levels in your body. So if you hold your breath for a while, your body is still producing CO2. And when the level of CO2 rises about a certain threshold, it says, hey, I want to breathe. Start breathing again. Okay, so that you're exhaling the CO2 and inhaling new oxygen. So this is how it actually, like this is the physiology behind it. So an air hunger drill, basically, it's a really nice drill. We're going to move a little. Then we're going to hold our breath. Try to keep on moving. There's a lot of CO2 production when you're using your muscles vigorously. And then after a while, if you can't hold it anymore, you can breathe again. So we're going to do this with a very simple exercise. We're just going to do an air squat. So guys, what I want to do is start moving. Yeah, this is actually a little close. So I'm going to pop my head out and then back in again. So what we're going to do is we're going to start moving fairly slowly, like this. Okay, and I want you to have a normal breathing pattern. When you decide it's 3, 2, 1, go, I want you to hold your breath. So exhale, hold your breath. So hold your breath for quite a time until you have a real urge to breathe again. Let's go. Guys, this is an awesome exercise. You can do it with quick lunges, like jumping lunges. You can do it with burpees. You can do it with high knees. You can do it with all motions, like air squatting, jumping squats. You can do it with a lot of motions. Running is great for it as well, where you actually try to engage a lot of musculature, because engaging more muscles will actually lead to a bigger CO2 production and will push your CO2 threshold a little bit further up. Yeah, exactly, Al. We did that on the assault bike. Very interesting, like totally off track in regards to the coronavirus. A lot of people are hyperventilators, so they breathe too often. It's super interesting because I have my watch now, and if I'm fairly stressed out, I breathe between 12 to 14 times. But if I have if I'm relaxed, my breathing rate is about 8 to 9 breaths per minute. Most people, like in the literature, in the new literature, because a lot of people have bad breathing patterns, they say if you have 12 to 20 breaths per minute, you're still okay. 20 breaths per minute is way too much. So if you're like a chronic hyperventilator, just doing air hunger drills is a great way to get better CO2 tolerance and to recalibrate your system in this way. So this is number one, air hunger. It's super fun. Do 4 or 5 sets. And when you warm up, a couple of squats, hold your breath, until you can't do it anymore. Do a couple of burpees, hold your breath until you can't do it anymore. Take a couple of suicide sprints in your flat until you can do it anymore. It's a great way of on the one hand, like targeting your nervous vagus nerve, like in the same brain areas that are responsible for breathing are in this regard are in the lower part of the brainstem, that you can target with that as well. The other drill that we're going to do is a ladder breathing drill. Ladder breathing drill. So think about doing this with something that's kind of rhythmic. So what I want you to think about is running, stepping, bouncing up and down. I'll use a bounce now because it's the easiest thing for me to do. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to stand up again. And the basic tenet is I'm going to inhale once, exhale once, inhale twice, exhale twice. 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. The goal is to work up to 10. 10 is pretty hard for most people. And I'll combine this with some sort of moving pattern. So first now we can actually do it together without any movement. So inhale, once. Then I inhale twice. Exhale twice. Inhale 3 times. Exhale 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. So you guys got this. So now we can do this with like a bouncing motion, for example. So I go bounce once, inhale once, bounce. So on one bounce I inhale, on the next bounce I exhale. So it looks like this. So give this a try. Work up to 7 or 8 now. This is for a lot of people, so work all the way up, work all the way down. This is for a lot of people actually fairly challenging, especially the counting. This is called dual tasking for your brain, doing 2 things at the same time, bouncing, breathing, and jumping is actually 3 things. A lot of people can't really count well. So give this a try. It's a great breathing drill. And the goal is to kind of try to fill all different parts of your lung with air. Jule, auf die gehe ich gleich ein. It's actually pretty challenging, Patricia. Like going up to 10 and down again, or doing this as you're running, or doing any kind of rhythmic movement. It's actually not that easy. Once again, like the dual tasking, and also like getting all the air in, taking the right size of the breath in and breath out. Breathing in is for most people a little harder than breathing out, but it's pretty challenging. But it actually should feel great. If you do this a couple of times and you learn how to like open up everything, like your chest and your lower abdomen to to get all the air, and it's a really cool exercise. Speaking about Wim Hof is a really cool way of breathing. I practiced it for a while as well. Yes, Albi, heute 9. The thing is, if you're already chronically hyperventilating, I think it's not a great thing to do initially. So my stand on breathing, there's so many different breathing systems out there that are really cool. Like we could talk about a lot of yoga breathing methods are cool. There's some really cool neurological research on different nostril breathing and brain activation patterns. So there's a lot of really interesting things there. I think one of the basic tenets should be I don't want you to be able to, or I don't think it's good to follow only on one breathing style. I rather want you to have breathing competency that you can do all the different breathing methods fairly well. So there's a lot of cool stuff in the Wim Hof method as well. Sometimes for people that are already hyperventilating, I think it's not the best way to start with the Wim Hof breathing. Did that help, Julia? Yeah, because you're exhaling a lot, so your CO2 levels won't get really high. When you hold your breath, yeah, but yeah, well, that goes a little bit more, too much detail. Okay, so the first drill, air hunger, ladder breathing. Any questions about those? Super fun, include them in your workouts. Maybe I'll film myself, I'll do this. I'll do all of those, like air hunger, ladder breathing, when I mobilize and when I move around. Okay, for those of you who are a little bit more anxious, I'm leaning back now, or who have like anxiety issues as well, like how you're afraid of, I don't know, that somebody's dying that you know be, or that there's so much suffering because of the COVID crisis and you can't handle it. One nice thing that you can do is kind of, it's also talking to your insular, or like a part of your brain that's very much involved with emotional responses to things. So like basic abdominal massages are great. So when you relax your belly and you massage, there's like these soft balls. Don't make it a really hard ball. Like these soft balls that you can lie on, or you can use like a halfly or partially inflated soccer ball as well. But there's actually better balls, a little softer and a little bit denser, that you can use to massage your own belly. You can use your hands, have somebody else massage. If you have a nice boyfriend or nice girlfriend, let them massage your belly. It's a great stimulus for the vagus nerve as well. It actually feels really good as well. And for a lot of people, it has calming effects. What you can do to have like a kind of like a low grade stimulus throughout the day, I think I talked about this with Patricia to try it out, is if you have any kind of, there's like these belly bracelets or belly whatever, like that you have some little clothing that you can, that kind of is a little bit more like stretchy in a way, that gives you constant feedback, is actually sometimes a really good tool, especially for people who are a little bit more anxious, but it's also a great vagus nerve stimulation. So we're not going to do like massages. You can try it out tonight if you want to, but it's actually a nice way to get some more activation in there as well. Okay, the next one that I'm going to talk about is the transcutaneous vagal nerve stimulation. There's a company called Nirvana, and there's a couple of other companies. I think I have 4 or 5 devices at home. There's like a lot of research out there. There's actually a book from one of my friends, Lars Lienhardt. It's called Neuronal Healing. It's a really cool book that speaks a lot about vagal nerve stimulation. And what it basically does is you're going to put like some form of electric current into the part of your area that's innervated by the vagus nerve, and you get like 30 or 15 minutes to an hour of like low grade vagal nerve stimulation. Awesome tool. If you don't have it, there are some other things that you can do to stimulate the vagal nerve. Humming, for example, gurgling, for example. So what I can recommend, if you like to sing, or if you like music, if you're sitting in your car, just hum every damn stupid song out there. If you're showering, hum and sing. It's really, really great vagal nerve stimulation and has very positive effects on your body. For a lot of people, it's also like, it's good for the mood as well. So maybe the people in Italy that started singing, these are the ones that don't get sick. That's a joke, but singing, humming, a great exercise for stimulating the vagal nerve. And you can also do some gurgling. So if you've never used, or if you constantly use, how do you call this? Mouth hygiene stuff that you can gurgle, like take it a little bit further down the throat and just gurgle for 30 seconds to a minute if you can. Really good vagal nerve stimulation. So like, okay. You can also, if you don't have any kind of electrical tool, I have something that's called the C-Vibe. It's a vibrating thing that I mostly use for rehab in the mouth area, but you can use that also for the inside, for the area in there to stimulate the vagus nerve. So if you very likely don't have that, you can use a toothbrush as well, an electric one that's kind of like vibrating. Vibration is a really cool sensory stimulus, and to put it somewhere in there in the area that I just showed you, they will also give you good stimulation. Do this for a minute or two, and mainly focus on doing it on the left side, please. Cool. Some other things. This goes a little bit back to Wim Hof. It's working and playing around with warmness and cool, like cold and warm. He recommends doing ice baths. So what I can strongly recommend you is all kind of hormetic stressors. So hormesis is like if you're if your body's going to be pushed out of equilibrium and it wants to get back into equilibrium. That means if I have a very, very cold environment, my body will learn how to heat up better. If I have a very, very hot environment, my body will learn how to cool the body a little bit more effectively. So it's like a hormetic response. And these responses also are great for the vagus nerve. They have a good stimulation for the vagus nerve and for the nervous system in general, but also for the immune system. And I can strongly recommend you. There's like a 10-week program out there from Wim Hof about how you can get accustomed to cold showers. I always hated cold water. I did that program I think I did it for 5 weeks, and then I was good to go with it. And in the end, you should be able to take like a 10-minute ice cold shower. I still do this regular, and I also do like a lot of contrast showering, like hot and cold working together. So this is a great way as well, and it's also you'll get so much better thermoregulation in general. Cool. So this is actually almost everything I wanted to say about doing the vagus nerve. Any questions about anything that I covered so far? Soll ich etwas auf Deutsch wiederholen? Shall I repeat something in German? The name of the nerve? Send me an email. I'll provide you with details about that if you're interested in doing this. Like actually, I didn't go into anything cooler than 25 degrees for swims. No, I have no issue swimming in mountain lakes. So I think it's a really fun program. Yes, Joe. Going to the sauna is awesome. There's some like really cool recent studies out there. You can look at Rhonda Patrick. She has accumulated a lot of research into working with. She mainly focused on hot environments and benefits of taking a sauna. Sauna, ice cold shower, relax, chill out. It's a great protocol. Really good questions. I hope Rhonda Patrick is spelled right. I'm not sure about this. Any other questions so far? So you need to think about it this way. Like our bodies are actually super resilient. And I think we are getting like in the environment we're living, we always try to make everything real easy on our bodies. So we don't like to expose ourselves to cold. We don't like to expose ourselves to really hotness. Um, the temperature in our room is always constantly 20 to 24 degrees. So there's a lot of benefit if your body oftentimes gets into different situations so that it learns to adapt. It makes you more resilient in general. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on, and we're going to talk about the gastrointestinal tract. Like the area of the gastrointestinal tract is huge. Like your intestines, like it's I don't know how many football fields. It's a huge area. So this kind of stuff, there's a lot of traffic, like stuff that going from the tract into your bloodstream, and it's very very well protected immunologically. There's a lot of like immune cells in the GI tract. Actually, it's one of the biggest sources of of the immune system, and it's also very very heavily nervally innervated. So it's called like the second brain. So it's a super interesting area of the body, and we're going to have a look at a couple of nutrients that I would recommend that you get on a daily basis. First of all, I'm going to talk about a little bit fancier stuff, and then some very easy and plain stuff. Ja, Julia, cool. Wenn du ein paar Tipps hast für Selbstmassage, wär das lässig. Vielleicht können wir mal einen Selbstmassageabend machen. Wenn dann wieder alles gut ist, zu Julia massieren gehen ist super. Okay. Ist das halbwegs interessant für alle oder ist das zu weit weg von dem, was ihr euch vorgestellt habt? Gut, machen wir weiter. Okay, wenn man über Ernährung spricht, also wenn man über beginnen wir mal so. If we're, let's start like this. If we're talking about the GI tract, it's actually a huge topic. And I think one of the key issues is that we actually need to make sure that we have a proper, like that the GI tract is a proper barrier that allows us to get the nutrients into our bloodstream and to keep everything out of the bloodstream. And because you need to think about it this way, if this gets leaky in any way, it's a very, very bad thing because undigested things will come into your bloodstream, a lot way more bacteria and viruses and fungi can enter your bloodstream. So there's a lot of more stuff coming into your bloodstream that shouldn't be there at all. So it's very important that this barrier is healthy. There's something called leaky gut. Leaky gut means that the lining of the gut is not proper anymore. There's a couple of reasons that can lead to leaky gut. I'll give you just one. It's in this case, high levels of stress are really, really bad for the gut lining. It can lead to a host of issues, and one of them is that the gut gets leaky. Another one, very often, wheat and gluten, like gluten itself, it's working with solanine together in your gut, and solanine is the one thing that's keeping your like the lining intact. So very often gluten or derivatives of gluten or similar substances like gluten that are contained in wheat mainly, but all the other grains as well, they might lead, if you overconsume them on a regular basis, they might lead to leaky gut as well. So this is the one thing that we in general want to prevent, so that the immune system doesn't have to constantly fight against invaders and pathogens that shouldn't be there. The other really interesting thing is full of millions and billions and trillions of bacteria and viruses and fungi. And actually what's super interesting is that sometimes we get an infection, sometimes we don't. But our body is able to protect itself very well against most of these viruses and bacteria. Like they are almost like in a symbiotic relationship with our body. And if this is not functioning properly, like some bacteria, like they're killing viruses. Viruses are fungi, are killing bacteria. Like they're all working together. It's a big mishmash. And in general, we stay healthy. If something is not working properly and you have leaky gut, that's not a good thing, because as I told you, then suddenly other stuff can come into your bloodstream and affect your whole body. So in regards to this webinar about the immune system, and especially about like COVID-19, that I can recommend you from a nutritional side that have shown positive effects on like antiviral effects and anti-replication effects. I just need to put the charger into my computer. I'll be back in a second. Okay, let's start with a couple of simple ones that you can take. Is one, like great one that showed a lot of positive benefits, is licorice root or lakritze. It has amazing it has an amazing inhibiting factor on viral replication, and it also inhibits like cytokines as well. So if you have an overreactive immune system, or if you think you have a viral infection, like licorice root seems to be a great thing that you can take in addition to a lot of medication. So like licorice root. Another one is curcuma. Ja, ich hasse Lakritze auch. So if you don't like it, don't use it. Curcuma has shown especially anti-inflammatory effects. So it's been mainly in Asia. It's used in a lot of different kitchens, like Asian kitchens. It's a very cool add-on that's been popularized in the Western world, I think, over the last decade quite a bit. But there's actually some really cool research out there as well in regards to curcumin or curcuma. Can strongly recommend this. The next one is supplementation of zinc. Zinc is a really, really important an important mediator for a lot of processes in your body, and especially if you have an immune response, your immune system it needs a lot of energy in acute situations, and zinc is important in creating energy. But besides all the benefits of zinc, it has also shown to inhibit viral infections, and it has a strong component in cutting the duration of the flu. So if you have a normal flu, that said, it's a lot of the stuff like, we don't know if it works with COVID-19, but with the normal flu, it actually shows that it's actually able to significantly reduce the time that you have the flu. Selene, I think it's selene in English. You need to have that in the right amounts to produce glutathione or glutathione. It's one of the biggest antioxidants in your body, and it's kind of like a precursing mediator that you need for having this antioxidant ready. Okay, then some other like basic things that I think are kind of obvious is, let's start with this one. Vitamin D is really, really an essential component in the immune response, and we see that people with higher vitamin D levels have generally way less infections. So there's a couple of things that you can do in wintertime. Yes, you can supplement with vitamin D, and there seems to be some interesting research out there that this actually really helps. What I really recommend is that you get some full body exposure, ideally, because it has other benefits, ideally directly in the morning, like full skin exposure, like wear a bra and the like short pants basically, and so that your body is able to produce vitamin D on your own. As I said, in wintertime it's pretty hard to do that. You can still do that on nice days. If like in this situation right now where it's hard to get out, if you have any kind of window where there's a lot of sun coming in, honestly, just open up the window and do the workout in the sun with just shorts on. Your neighbors will love it. You guys are all looking great and sexy, so all your neighbors will be loving it. If you have a partner, don't let the neighbors watch. But actually, it's good fun and it's super healthy. Like the own production of vitamin D is probably more beneficial of taking this as a supplement, but a supplement is a great tool if you have very low vitamin D levels. So that means get out and move out in the sun. And guys, what you shouldn't do is when you go out you shouldn't plaster yourself with a Sonnenschutzfaktor, like a sun safety factor SF 50 or 30. The goal is not to stay out there in the sun and lie there for 3 hours. It's go into the sun, move for 15 to 20 minutes, get as much skin exposed as possible, and then go back inside or cover yourself again. But if you apply a lot of sunscreen, it's UV blocking, you won't get a lot of the positive effects of the sun. I know there's a lot of like, you need to protect yourself all the time. Morning sun, evening sun is great. Go out there, especially in the morning. It's also great if you have issues sleeping well, to resetting your circadian rhythm. It's the rhythm that you have, like the day and night rhythm. If you wake up and you get out into the fresh air, sun, open the windows, stand in the sun, bounce around, do some breath letters for me, okay, or air hunger drills. Vitamin C is an interesting one. I had just as recently a discussion with my wife because I said, I don't know if this is a great idea if you have COVID-19 to supplement with vitamin D. Then I looked at a couple of the research and stuff that came out of China. And a lot of the Chinese guidelines, they strongly recommended taking vitamin C also as a treatment against the coronavirus. So it seems to have some positive effect. There's a lot of studies just recently published that show very positive effects of vitamin C. So what I would recommend is that you just eat a lot of veggies or fruits that contain vitamin C in high quantities. Like the goal should be to have enough vitamin C going on as a prevention. If you have somebody that is able to give you intravenous infusions on vitamin C, this actually seems to help. Even if you have a mild state, or if you have caught the virus and you're not feeling well, I mean, number one, you go to the doctor, you clear everything else, you make sure you don't infect anybody else. But intravenous doses of vitamin C seem to help there pretty significantly as well. And especially that's super interesting, especially for, I don't know if you guys have heard that, but a lot of times when people do very, very strenuous exercises like marathon runners, 10K runners, something where you can really exhaust your body so that it needs a long time to recover, they oftentimes get respiratory infections. It's very, very common among them. If you're one of those guys that really likes to run or kill themselves in longer workout, really think about ramping up your vitamin C content in your diet, or think about getting an IV infusion of vitamin C. So it's especially important for people that exercise super, super hard. And in these people, it has shown that it can't actually stop, or it doesn't stop you from getting the infection, but once again, it severely cuts the duration of the infection down. Okay, where am I? There, I had this one. So this is another round that's super interesting. It's lactoferrin. It's a compound that's very often that's not very often. That's in the milk, in the breast milk of mammals, and it really, really helps with. It's very antiviral and antibacterial. It's a great compound that you can easily supplement. There's some great research out there on the antiviral and antibacterial or anti-inflammation effects of lactoferrin. Seems to be very, very important. Also, if you're able to digest whey well, there's great resources out there. If you consume good whey that's kind of clean and maybe enhanced with a little bit of probiotic or stuff that helps you to, not probiotic, that's not the right word, but that helps you digest the whey better. and it doesn't cause GI distress. Whey has a lot of these or kind of similar effects on being anti-inflammatory as well. So lactoferrin, you can easily look it up on the internet. It seems to be a very, very good supplement. Speaking about the inner gut lining, like what most people don't do these days is they don't consume enough fiber, and a lot of the bacteria in your intestines, they actually are able to use that fiber and process that fiber, and for them it's a super important nutrient. So what happens if you don't have enough fiber? It can lead to severe like dysbiosis, so that you have bacteria that are too much in your intestines that you don't want, and the bacteria that are actually fairly good for you, or if you to have the right balance. Everything's about balance. Fiber is a really, really cool thing. So I'll talk about how much and fruits and veggies, what you should eat, what I would recommend to you guys. Right now, I'm really trying to do this every day because I think it's very important and health promoting. There's also fiber supplements. I think there's a tree called baobab tree that's actually super, super rich in fiber, like the powder of the baobab tree. Yeah, but eat more veggies, the simple, basic ground line over here. Seafood. Seafood is it has so many different benefits. One is there is a bacteria in there called marine streptomyces. It's very beneficial in regards to like killing other bacteria and viruses, and that's one part why seafood is really cool. The other one is a little bit more in regards to what was I about to say? Like one is omega-3 fatty acids, of course, but there was something else that I wanted to mention. Yeah, okay, that was it. That a lot of the compounds, a lot of the proteins and other compounds in the seafood, they actually have strong antibacterial effect. So I really recommend that you either eat algae, crustacean animals like shellfish, so Krustentiere, shellfish, Muscheln, and also salmon has a lot of these components in there as well. So seafood seems to be very, very healthy. And also when we look at the evolution of man or humanity, it seems that a big transition occurred when people were eating a lot of, or started to eat a lot of seafood. In essence, it changed a little bit it provided us with a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, which seem to help brain development. But in general, it's a very healthy part that should be in every diet. If you don't like seafood, I mean, obviously don't eat seafood. I recommend that you probably. Okay, some kind of TCM. Thanks, Shivan. I just read this. That I strongly recommend to have in your diet. If you don't eat it, use a cool supplement. There is like really good fish oil supplements out there that actually provide you with EPA and DHA, like two important omega-3 fatty acids. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, another one is fungi. So I told a lot about like the symbiotic effects of viruses, bacteria, and fungi is like very, very primal species, all of them. And fungi, there's some really cool research out there again. I mean, a lot of cultures have used these ingredients for a long time, traditionally, to mitigate disease. A lot of it is not super well researched, but there's actually some cool research out there on the positive effects of eating more mushrooms and fungi. So easy, go buy fungi and mushrooms. What I also want you to think about is like probiotics and fermented foods. So in Austria, we eat sauerkraut, but there's kimchi in Asian countries. So everything that you can ferment is actually really, really good for the gut. Like there's a bacterium called the lactobacillus, and it's actually really good for the gastrointestinal flora. So eat more of that stuff. A lot of people don't like it. You can make it yourself. You can easily buy it. it's not that hard to make, and it actually, if you're used to it, it tastes delicious. If you don't know a recipe, go and ask your grandma. Skype with her. I'll talk about social isolation a little later. It's very bad for people, social isolation. So talk to your grandma and let her give you a couple of recipes over Skype or maybe on the phone. Bone broth. I think it's an awesome thing that you should have as often as possible. It's just like make a really good Rindsuppe, like a beef soup, bone broth. Like use all the bones, there's a lot of collagen and other super healthy stuff in there. My mom always made us a chicken soup like this with a lot of bones in there as well. And actually, when you drink it, you almost feel that you're getting better. But there's a lot of like anecdotal wisdom about this, but also actually some fairly okay-ish research. I actually think all nutritional research is really bad, but looking at this seems to be fairly okay. And another one that seems to be interesting as well is use a lot of herbs and spices and also oils made of herbs and spices. For example, oregano is one of these things that has very, very strong antiviral and antibacterial. So there's a lot of natural antiviral and antifungal and antibacterial foods like Knoblauch and, for example, oregano and Zwiebel. All these things contain a lot of stuff that seems to be very beneficial for having a proper, not an immune response, but having proper effects on keeping the viruses and the bacteria in check and allowing them to stay fairly balanced. So what I can recommend, like after like listing all that stuff, that's a lot. And I can send you a list and an explanation of all that I just mentioned. But what I try to do for myself right now is I'm trying to eat at least 30 different vegetables and fruits every week. And there's like a fairly new published paper out there that showed that the gut flora, so all the microbiome, all the bacteria in your gut, it's completely different from people that consume 30 or more vegetables, or more, let's say more vegetables, compared to those that consume less vegetables. So vegetables seem to have a crucial part for a healthy microbiome. Eat more of this. Today I made ossobuco with carrots and tomatoes. Yesterday I had artichokes. I did artichokes the first time. The day before I made some shiitake mushrooms with zucchini ragu and some fish. So there, I'm cooking a lot at the moment and trying to figure out how I can do more of that in my daily schedule. Yeah, eat a lot of that stuff, guys. It's super, super healthy. More veggies and a little more fruit as well. Any questions about the nutritional component of this? Any input from your side? Any question you want to have answered? I know going back to Shivan's, like you guys can type in your questions. Go back to Shivan's comment. Like the Chinese, they have a lot of stuff. Like look at it scientifically, proved to be not to be that effective. But a lot of the stuff they did actually seems to have a very positive effect as well. So I think it's just with all these long hold traditions, we need to look at them from a very scientific perspective, test them, see if there's benefit or not. And one of the hard things when you look at the methodology of all these epidemiological studies is oftentimes the dose is not good enough, the population is not well picked, there's a lot of biases involved in there. So I think the testing itself is rendered oftentimes inefficient, but I think what we can still, like one way of understanding all this is you can think about it biochemically as well, like just looking at the basic physiology and the agents and what the agents do in your body. That would be, I think, in my way, the better way of approaching this. Like most of the epidemiological studies are really crappy designed, but looking at the compounds, or what the compounds do in your body, or what compounds are needed in your body, I think you'll often get a better picture of what you should be something with. Yeah, super. Oregano oil. There was something in the 14th to like 17th century where they made this public. It's called thieves oil. I can send you. You can look it up. Thieves oil. I can send you a recipe for it as well. It was used by that's the story behind it. It was used by people during the plague, by thieves, and the thieves went into a lot of different houses and stole things, but they didn't get infected by the plague. And when there was the trial, they said, "Hey, you know what, guys? Give us the recipe for your." Or they said, "Yeah, we're using this oil." Blah blah blah. They said, "You know what? Give us the recipe for the oil, and then we are going to let you free." And it's basically a compound mix of a lot of the herbal oils that you can use that have shown to have very beneficial effects on being antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. So yeah, like oregano oil is really good. Yeah. Cool. No more questions? Then we're going to move on. Okay. So let me say this now. The next part is about stress. And the stress response actually is a fairly complex response where the nervous system is involved quite a bit. And there's something called the HPA axis. It's the axis that basically goes from the from the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland to the adrenal glands. And what it basically does, if you're in a situation where you need to have a flight or fight response, like a really stressed situation, basically your hypothalamus, it's kind of like a really cool relay station where a lot of information passes through your brain that's processed unconsciously and then sent up to higher centers of the brain as well. So it sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which is right behind it, and then this one sends a signal down into your adrenal glands to produce adrenaline and other stuff, and to release cortisol so that you have a proper response, to have more energy available for the body. In essence, what oftentimes happens when people have an acute stress reaction, this is a great response. So if you are in deep need for, hey, there is, I don't know, a lion somewhere over else, or that there's a dog on the street and it's running towards me and it looks like it's going to bite me, it's great if I have enough energy to run away from the dog. Okay, that's pretty simple. So this is cool. The issue that arises is if you have a chronic stress response, and especially with having a chronic stress response, what this does is it produces a lot of cortisol, and cortisol has a very immune suppressive effect. So if you're super stressed out, you're I think a lot of people know that when they work really, really hard and then they go on holiday and they get sick, it's very often like the stress releases. Suddenly the immune system is easily, like, you're easily infected and then you get sick being on holiday. So that's kind of like the classic path of this. So if you're like overly constantly excreting cortisol, it's not really good for your immune system. So having this one in check and how to influence it, I think it's one key thing that we need to understand for proper immune function, but also for just staying healthy. And especially times, and I think this is like the last thing that I'm going to talk about, is a couple of things that you can do. Is one is focus on proper sleeping patterns. I know it's very tempting these days to sit in front of your screen until the night and watching all the news and all these, like, there's constantly new information coming in. There's like 1,000 more people over there get sick, and we have I don't know, over 100 people dying in Austria at the moment. This is dramatic. It honestly doesn't change and affect your life. I recommend that you switch off all your electronic devices. If you go to bed at 10:30, we're going to quit this at 9:30 so that you have enough time weaning off all electronics. Blue light, it messes your circadian rhythm up. Blue light, exactly, you're going to wake up. It's not great. If you don't have a blue light for your computer or your cell phone, use a blue light filter at least. But the goal should be get rid of all these electronics. Go to bed a little earlier than you used to. If you're like the guy that goes to bed at 1 or 2 at night, I think that's, for most of us, that's not enough sleep at the end. So I recommend that you try to sleep at least 7 hours a day. There's some people, and it's a very, 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 very small minority, that seem to get away with a little less sleep. But most people, when they've been tested, they sleep about 7 to 9 hours. A lot of us don't get that sleep anymore, and this plays havoc with our health. It's a cool book out there by Matthew Walker. He's a British sleep scientist, and if you read it, you go like, okay, it's a little bit redundant in the end, but there's so much great information in there about what it does to your appetite, what it does to your hunger cravings, what it does to your immune system, what it does to your, you can name it. Yeah, we're going to quit this in 10 minutes, Pat. So it's a really book. I can't, honestly, there's so much medications out there. The simplest medication is proper food, good sleep, proper exercise. If you do all these three, you're perfectly well off for most things in life. So sleep enough. If you have more questions on sleep, I can answer them maybe more individually, but I think sleeping is, yeah, that's the book. That's the call. Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. It's a really interesting book. And I'm going to, I don't know their name right now, but I'm going to recommend another book that is a slightly, I think Matthew Walker is kind of like he's super strict about you need to sleep that much. And I think there's other people that have shown, maybe it's not that much, but I generally think sleeping about 7 hours at least every day should be fairly good. So number one. The other one is that I really recommend this. I was like this, like initially as well. I completely stopped it. Is you don't need to check the COVID-19 numbers every 5 minutes. Let me say this again. You don't need to check the COVID-19 numbers every 5 minutes. You don't need to check them every hour. I think what you're doing by this is you're really, really putting a lot of stress into you. That's totally unnecessary. Check it once a day. Check the news once a day. I think you'll get all the important information. I think most of the information probably doesn't affect your life directly as well. So don't be that guy that's sitting back home and constantly refreshing. Yeah, once a day is enough. The news feed. Do me a favor. Don't do this. Another thing that I can recommend to you, if you're into it or if you've never tried it, is some kind of mindfulness meditation, some kind of breathing practice. So stuff that I think is super calming down. It's also really good to calm down the stress response is a method called box breathing, where you inhale for 3 to 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 seconds. You hold your breath for the same time. You exhale for the same time. You hold your breath for the same time. It's a very simple breathing method that you can use before you go to bed, as you're doing your stretches. And it's a super relaxing, calming. It has a super relaxing, calming effect. I think there's a couple of other things that we could do a class on, maybe, if you guys are interested. There is a method called progressive muscular relaxation. It's a nice method of engaging and relaxing all the muscles. On the one hand, it's cool because you learn to build a lot of like muscle, like you get a lot of good feeling for the muscle and how to relax and how to engage it. So if you feel stressed, you can immediately relax yourself. It's a great tool. Or we could also do some, what's the name? There's some other cool practices. Let me think for a second, please. Autogenic training. It's another really cool tool. if you guys want to be run through such a session, let me know and we can set up a session so you guys all know like how to do this. And we can probably combine it with some easy mobility work as well. Or breathing work, sorry, breathing work was my point. So breathing work, maybe some relaxation stuff as well. Half an hour is more than enough for 20 minutes. Okay, Sophia, I got that. I'll try to start one next week. An app that I can recommend to you if you want to try meditation, Headspace is a great app. Or 10% Happier is also a great app that you can use to start getting into meditation. Waking Up from Sam Harris is also a great app that I really like. So there's a bunch of really cool stuff out there that you can use for yourself. I think having it has a huge impact on myself. Doing like 5 to 10 minutes of easy meditation, breathing work every day throughout the day, especially when I feel stressed out. And one more thing that I want to say about breathing. We have a nose for breathing. We have a mouth for eating. The nose should be your primary organ to breathe. It has a filter in it, or a lot of filters. So use your nose to breathe, especially when you do exercise. If it's not super high all-out exercise, I strongly recommend that you try nose breathing only. This had almost like meditation-like effects on my body as well, where I felt super, super, super like sharp in my brain because I didn't hyperventilate as I was doing exercise. So I can only strongly recommend that you try nose breathing a little bit more when you guys doing the workouts. Okay, turn off the news, mindfulness, proper sleep. Let me say one more thing. It's exercise. Exercise is amazing. I think it's one of the healthiest or the best things that you can do for brain health and also for keeping a healthy body. What I think what you should be cautious with, especially in these days, is that you don't over exercise or put yourself into a situation where your body is so fatigued that you're dampening your immune system. This is, as I told you, with the marathon runners and all these people, a lot of them have acute respiratory infections because their immune system is so hampered down from all the effort they put into it. I think the same thing can happen if you are most of you won't probably do a lot of weightlifting at the moment. But that said, guys, don't kill yourself. You can push hard, but don't do like a 30-minute all-out workout where you're like dying at the end and you need like 20 minutes or an hour to recover. I think this time is not the time that we should do this. What I would recommend is do a lot of like strength work. It's great, guys. If you have hard issues doing push-ups, like really try in this like 1 or 2 months or 3 months that are in front of us, like try to get a really solid push-up. Maybe try to get really good at pulling. Take something heavy and squat a lot. Squat every day, even if the weight is light. Do a lot of squats. Do a lot of lunges. Do jumping squats. I think there's so many ways to get stronger with very simple tools. So this is one thing. Strength is always good if you don't overdo it. But if you don't have a barbell, you can't kill yourself and squat like 20 tons in a day. I think this would be definitely too much. So keep the intensity in a meaningful range. Let me say it this way. With most of the workouts that we've programmed, you won't kill yourself too much. Okay. Also do some light cardio work. Maybe I'll post some options. I think it's super important to go like for 20 minutes, maybe windows open, fresh air and the sun, and stand there and be moving for 30 minutes. Not too high intensity, but like just keep on moving, keeping good blood flow. And then this is exercise. Just don't do too much and don't kill yourself. And there's one more thing that I want to say, especially for those guys of you that are doing home office. There's some really good research out there in regards to, like some people say, sitting is the new smoking. In regards to sitting and the inflammation process that start to happen in your body. And prolonged sitting seems to have very, very detrimental effects on your body. So what I recommend, if you have a job in front of your computer Like, take your iPhone, set a timer for 30 minutes, and every 30 minutes get up and move around a little. Do a couple of stretches, do some leg swings, do a couple of air squats, do a couple of burpees, do some push-ups and air squats. I don't care, but get up and move. I think it's super crucial to stay healthy, and this doesn't hold true not only in times of like these, but I think in general, prolonged sitting is one of the worst things that we can do to our body. There's something called the SAT principle in physiology. It's called specific adaptation to imposed demand. If you sit all the time, your body is getting metabolically and also what's the right word for this? Physiologically, anatomically, it's getting used to sitting. So try to get up and move around every half hours. This will keep you healthy as well. Guys, I think I'm through everything that I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Is there anything that you want to have an answer to right now? I can imagine, Pat. It's for most people like this. I think really prolonged sitting. I'm so lucky that I have a job where I need to move around all the time. Like every day I'm working. Now I have this nice little watch that I bought. And when I'm in the gym, I'm covering a distance of 10 to 15 kilometers every day that I'm in the gym coaching. That's huge. Like most of you guys probably come close to that if you don't have a regular walking practice. Actually, there's so many more things that we could talk about. If you guys like think about your questions, if you have questions, I think one of the things that we could talk about is yes and no. I think the solution is not that you stand around for 8 hours without moving. I think the goal is, you know what, no position for itself is bad. I think having a prolonged position, like any position for too long, is the bad thing. So if you have a desk that you can move up and down, great. There's people out there. One is a mathematician. He's called Stephen Wolfram. He invented a program called Mathematica. He's a really, really weird but super intelligent dude. And somebody told him that sitting is really bad. And then he decided he needs to do something about it. And he built like a treadmill where he could work on, and then he had an Bauchladen. I don't know what the English name for this is, like a belly thing where he could use his computer to get outside and work outside as he was walking around in the woods. So I think it's more about being in motion more than just being in a static position all the time. I think if you have a standing table, great, but change positions frequently when you're using this. Yeah, one more thing that I want to talk about. I'm not a huge fan of all these apps, but I think there's an app that you probably should use a little bit more. It's called House Party. And the reason why I recommend it is I think very often we get into, especially in times of these where we're told we shouldn't go out, we should keep distance to other people. There is like social isolation actually leads to an upregulation of bacterial defense, but a downregulation of viral defense. Like said very simply, I can send you some research paper if you're really interested in it, but this just means it's very important for human beings to be socially active. And if you guys don't hang out with your friends anymore, you can't. I recommend that you buy one of these apps or do like something like the webinars where we can chat to each other. I mean, this is not very chatty, but when we are starting to use Zoom, it will be way more chatty. But hang out with your people, like speak to your parents, speak to your grandparents if you have grandparents, but try to stay engaged and try to have your friends, even if it's just online drinking a glass of wine, like come together and be a little bit more social as well. This was one of the things that I wanted to say. Yeah, all the stuff is just too nerdy at the moment. Yeah. So guys, this is it from my side. If there are no more questions from your side, let's call it a nice evening. It's 9:35. Time to switch off the computers and read a book, do some breathing practice, and then head off to bed. Cool. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you next week. We're going to send up a new schedule. Is there any topic that you guys would be interested in? I mean, I could talk about COVID-19. I'm pretty nerding out on this as well. We could talk about the pandemic and some other other stuff. Hey Pat, do you have a bag? I think you probably know a little bit more about the virus itself than I do. I actually don't know the virus and the physiology of the virus very well, but we could do a like a co-working stuff on the virus. Do you guys know Nicky Popper? He's the guy from TU running all the simulations. We could also invite him to have a little talk for us or with us about the epidemiology and the spreading of the virus. I think some of the models they use are pretty interesting and give some interesting insights. It's very hard to tell if these models are actually really good or not. It's so sad that I can't talk to you personally. I think this would make it way, I don't know, more easier to exchange ideas and cool. Coming up with quicker tests. You know what I think? It drives me nuts. Like, honestly, that's why I don't check the numbers. Anna, going out to grab equipment for the box, want to do, but do you think it's unjustified? Unjustified in which sense? I think it's not an important thing for your life at the moment. What I do think is, and what we're trying to do, we're going to send out like time slots so people shouldn't get in contact with each other. And I think this will be actually way safer in the sense of not acquiring the virus or transmitting the virus than going to the supermarket. So I think it's from a health threat perspective or from a life-threatening perspective, it's totally not justifiable. But I think it's justifiable if you're not afraid of getting it, which I think the risk is very, very little. But I think it can help you to train a little bit better back home. Let me say, what was I about to say? The statistics. It just drives me nuts that we actually don't get proper data on the spreading of the virus. So I think all the models are actually really crappy, starting from the fatality rate of the models that we see. And one of the big reasons for this is, I don't know if you guys know that, but I know like a lot of people that insisted on being tested that didn't get tested. So we're so low on testing equipment that we actually can't test a lot of people. And all the numbers in China, they actually really don't make sense. Either way more people had the virus, or it wouldn't be able that it's not spreading at the moment that fast. So whatever. We could talk about this for ages. I think that was not the topic of the webinar. Maybe I'm going to talk to Pat, and if you guys would be interested in some interesting insights into the virology and the virus itself and how it spreads, now we could clearly talk about it. But like, to sum it up, I think the data is really shitty. It's super inaccurate and it's not representative and not meaningful at all. So that said, guys, have a really nice evening. I'll miss you, and I hope to see all of you pretty soon, either on the next webinar or in a couple of weeks in the box. And guys, if you have any ideas or anything that you really like to know about, more like fitness and health related, I'm super happy to do a webinar on anything that you like to know. Yeah, the Russians. I think it's like the Chinese. Maybe they faked everything. Sleep well, guys. It was a pleasure.